Thanks for tuning in to the Diaphragm Dynasty. I'm back with an exciting R&B topic, as we always cover here on the Diaphragm Dynasty. Now, Billboard released this top 75 R&B singers or artists of all time. Now, this list released about 5 days, almost a week ago. I'm covering it now because, of course, I have a different list. I didn't go all the way to 75 on my list because it's very difficult to do these lists just because of the time eras. And some of this music, like I tell people, you can be a fan of this music, but you have to be living during the time to actually concept conceptualize the effect of the music. For example, Aretha Franklin and Marvin Gaye, I wasn't alive during their time period of their peak in their era. So I can listen to music and appreciate it, but I don't understand what that music meant to people around that time because you go through different things in that time era. So you can still consider them greats, but I believe that it's somewhat pandering to say they're greater than some artists that you grew up with because you're going to have that personal bias. Because I remember where I was when I heard Usher's Confessions. I remember where I was, when I heard uh, Beyonce's Love on Top. I know where I was when I heard, artists like Maxwell, This Woman's Work, and things like that. So it's going to be I bias automatically, but I can still give people their credit and props, even though I didn't grow up in that era, and I still can appreciate their music, even though I didn't grow up in that time era. So I have in my list, I have a mix of people that I grew up with and a mix of people I just grew up hearing from in a different time era when I heard their music. So it's a little bit different. But Billboard used criteria of vocal prowess, so basically vocal strength and range, body of work, longevity, achievements, influence, and impact. So there's a lot of different sliders that they use for this. And their top 10 was Marvin Gaye, R. Kelly, Mariah Carey, Prince, James Brown, Whitney Houston, Beyonce, Michael Jackson, Aretha Franklin, and Stevie Wonder. And of course, my top 10 is a little different than theirs, and I'll go through my top 10 and break it down a little bit. But I don't need all the criteria that they use. I only use their voice and their catalog. That's the only thing I need to know. If you can sing, and then how many hits you put together for how long. So I guess I use longevity as well. So my top 10 in no particular order, I have Marvin Gaye, Beyonce, Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, R. Kelly, Usher, Teddy Pendergrass, Luther Vandross, Maxwell, and Stevie Wonder. Now, R. Kelly might be number one for me because that 12 play album that he had and TP2 and all of these other great albums that he put together and great songs and great memories. He's definitely the most versatile, and he writes his own music and produces a lot of his own music. And he's just put on hits for other artists, not just for himself, but the music that he's created for other artists. And I have Maxwell on my list, and he's wrote for him. He's wrote for so many other artists that I probably don't even know about, and even Michael Jackson he's wrote for. So he's wrote for a lot of different artists and things like that. So I really can't put anybody over R. Kelly, especially the time period I grew up in. As an artist, he's one of the greatest artists I've ever seen, especially in R&B. He's my number one artist. If anybody knows me, R. Kelly is my favorite R&B artist of all time. But Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston might have the biggest range in my top 10. They're exceptional with the range, especially Mariah Carey. She has a whistle register, which is very rare. There's only a few artists ever in history to ever have that, and that's in music in general. So her range is just crazy. She has the most amazing voice. She's seen as more pop, but nevertheless, some of her biggest hits are R&B, so I included her in there. Now, Marvin Gaye and Maxwell might have the best falsettos. And anybody knows me knows one of my favorite songs is Maxwell, This Woman's Work, because of his incredible falsetto on that song, and his range was impeccable. A very difficult song to emulate, a song I love singing all the time. So that is why I put those on the list. Stevie Wonder's just has the hits catalogs and artistry, might be the most versatile musician in this bunch that I picked because he can play piano, he can play, um, the harmonica and things like that. So he might be the most versatile artist in my 10. Of course, in history, it's probably Prince is the most versatile artist, but he's seen more as a pop and rock as well. But nevertheless, Stevie Wonder is the most versatile I have on my list. Usher is just a bias because I've seen his whole catalog when I was living, all the way from My Way, all the way to present day music that he's been putting out. I've seen his whole catalog, and that Usher's Confessions is the greatest album in R&B history that I've seen personally while I've been living. So that's the greatest, might have been greatest this album period that I ever listened to in my lifetime. So, and this is coming from the '90s all the way to now. Um, and Teddy Pendergrass is probably the most underrated and has some of the greatest production in this list. And he was an exceptional singer as well. Um, and he's not talked about enough in R&B circles, but Teddy Pendergrass has a lot of hits that your favorite artists have sampled, and a lot of your favorite artists have taken from his artistry as well. Luther, Luther is just Luther. He never had a bad song or bad album. Luther's always been the most consistent, and he's probably the most consistent on my list, and probably has one of the greatest voices on the list as well. So Luther is definitely one of the most talented on this list. Beyonce, what else can I say? She's the most famous and she's the most consistent artist of our time. And she commands that MJ type effect anytime she's in public, and she probably can't even go in public anymore. But Beyonce definitely has one of those voices that you can't tell the story of R&B or music in general without, because her story is just that impeccable. Other than Taylor Swift, she's the present day MJ. Um, but even Taylor Swift, to some degree, doesn't have that mystique that Beyonce has, because Beyonce is not seen as much as Taylor Swift, and out of sight, out of mind sometimes, I believe. So, Beyonce doesn't put herself out there like that. When she's out, it's usually to promote something or just to perform. She's not just out at Chiefs game, or she's not just out with Jay-Z just in random places at Walmart or something like that. She doesn't get out like that. So, but another point is I wanted to add Frank Ocean to this list because of his impact in my life, but of course he doesn't have the catalog. He's not that active. Now, if he would have been maybe 5 albums in right now with like 3 classics or so, maybe I would have put him on this list. But unfortunately, he doesn't have the catalog or the activity to put him in this list. But tell me what you think your top 10 are, and you know, and what your thoughts are, and continue to like and subscribe to the content. And as always, until next time, I'll see you next time.